Hey everybody, it's Realtor Cree with Spencer Real Estate Company, and I wanted to come on and do a short video on what the representation means in real estate and how we start the process of buying a house. We usually start with the buyer's representation agreement. It's one of the things that we start with, and sometimes clients don't always understand what the buyer's representation agreement is, and so I had some questions that were asked of me today, and I thought, well, okay, let me go ahead and do a short video to try and explain to you what the buyer's representation agreement is. It is a 2-page document, and this is just a sample of one that I just pulled out of my file. And the reason why the buyer's representation agreement is important is because it talks about the parties who are in the transaction. It talks about the terms. It talks about commission, what the obligations are if you're a broker, what your obligations are if you're a buyer. It talks about, what happens when you have competing buyers. And you need this because it specifies a specific marketing area that you're going to market in and a definite beginning and end period, because you have to have a commencement date and you have to have an expiration date as to when you're going to represent your buyers. And so this is important because the most important thing is we need to make sure that we have everything in writing. We want to have it in writing so that nobody's confused about who's going to be responsible for what. On page 1 of the buyer's representation agreement, it talks about the broker's commission, and it says that the commission is earned when the buyer enters into a binding written contract for the purchase of property in a market area, and it's payable, and it lists these 3 different times. The closing of the purchase of the property, it's payable if the buyer's breach of a written contract to purchase a property happens, or if the buyer's breach of this contract, if the buyer's breach of this agreement happens. So that's when the commission is owed. And so some people think that they can haggle with your commission. And the reason why I don't haggle with my commission is because people don't understand what goes into, helping you find the house that fits your needs. If you're a seller, you're looking at a listing agreement, and that's totally different, but there's still work when you want to sell someone's house. When you're helping a buyer buy a house, you're using, your resources to help this buyer find the house that's going to fit their need. And so we want to make sure that there are no hidden agendas, that everybody understands exactly what's taking place and who's going to be responsible for the commission. With this buyer representation agreement, the commission was paid by the seller, and it's clearly marked here. Now, you, the buyer, can pay the commission if you want to. If you just have money laying around and you want to pay that commission, that's okay. Nobody's going to stop you from it. But the commission is generally paid by the seller, but again, it could be negotiable to where, the buyer pays it. But here's marked commission paid by seller. It says broker shall seek the principal amount of its commission from the seller or the seller's broker in the amount of 6% of the gross purchase price. So whatever the price is of the house, multiply that by 6%, and that's what it's going to cost you to sell your house if you're selling. But then here, with the buyer's representation agreement, I will represent the buyer, somebody else will represent the seller, and that 6% is going to be divided between me, my company, and the other agent's company. So the money doesn't go directly to my hand. Once that commission is paid, once that 6% is paid, my company gets 3% and the other company gets 3%. That's how that works. And so I'm paid afterwards. And so I think a lot of times people think, oh, you're going to get too much for what you do. No, we do a lot when we represent buyers, and we do it the right way. And so I don't haggle with my commission. Once it's set, it's set. And, I don't haggle with that. And so the buyer's representation agreement is really important because we have to make sure that, if an intermediary is needed, that means that it says here, the buyer authorizes the broker to show to the buyer properties which the buyer has listed for sale. But if the buyer wishes to purchase any property the broker has listed for sale, the buyer authorizes the broker to act as an intermediary between the buyer and the seller to present any offers the buyer may wish to make on the property and to assist both the buyer and the seller. So when there's an intermediary relationship, the broker is representing the buyer and the seller, but he's probably going to appoint some agents to do that. And so we want to make sure that everything is in writing and that the commission is secured, because we work strictly on commission. And we don't want there to be any problems with getting our commission, just like you don't want there to be a problem when you're getting the house of your dreams. And so that's what the the residential buyers representation agreement is for. It talks about market areas. It talks about appointments. Sometimes you might need relocation services. If you don't, we say no. If you do, we say yes, and we provide you with the relocation services that you need. So the buyer's representation agreement is really important. And, agents don't want you to be upset about signing it, but we want to be clear about what the purpose is. And so the purpose of the residential buyer's rep is just to make sure that everybody knows who's paying the commission, who's being represented, what is the term, what is the commencement date, when is the expiration date, what area we're going to be looking in, how much is the commission, and you have to put your initials at the bottom, and so do I. And once we've initialed this agreement, this is in place until someone terminates it, okay? So the buyer's representation agreement is important. I hope that this has shedded some light on what we call it a buyer's rep for short, on what this means. I love to keep the conversation moving. So if you have any other questions, just feel free to hit me up, and I'll answer any questions that you have about the buyer's representation agreement. But again, it's something that we do want to get in place right at that substantial dialogue and make sure that everybody is on board with who's paying the commission, how long we're going to have this buyer's representation agreement in place, and what the duties of all the parties involved include. I hope this has been helpful to you. If you'd like to see more videos like this, let me know. I'm Realtor Cree with Spencer, a real estate company, and I enjoy helping make the dream of home ownership a reality. Thanks.